We presented with my colleagues the data concerning a tool, a digital tools called MSCopilot, and MSCopilot in a study called MSDetect. The aim of the study and the use of this digital tool, MSCopilot, is to detect subtle changes concerning disability progression. Because today, with the drugs we have, we are able to complete almost completely what is related to relapse and the consequence of relapses. But in fact, we see in many patients without any relapse, without any MRI activity, what we call PIRA. PIRA for progression independent of relapse activity, which is globally a subtle changes. Over time, it takes sometimes months or years, but at the end, the patient is more disabled. And we need absolutely to use some tools beyond the classical EDSS only. In MS, most of the neurologists in the world used only EDSS, which is not sensitive enough to detect this subtle progression. And because in the near future, we will have new drugs targeting this subtle progression, we need to be able to detect it more accurately, not only in clinical trials for research, but also in routine. And the MSCopilot in the MSDetect trial, it's an international multi-center study in US, in Europe mainly, including more than 240 patients during a significant period of time, and to be able to compare the data given by the tool, the digital tool, comparing with EDSS. And the objective, of course, is to know if what we are able to detect with the tool is much more sensitive than what we are able to detect with EDSS. The biomarker we use is walking capacities, time to walk, or to walk during 30 minutes, the distance during 30 minutes. The capacity to use the upper limbs, it's the equivalent on a smartphone, of course, on the 9-hole peg test, And also using the smartphone, on the smartphone is the equivalent of the SDMT, is a really simple cognitive test. And also the fourth biomarker we use is low contrast visual acuity. Independently, all these biomarkers are known to be associated with disability progression. And together, it's very interesting to look at changes, subtle changes over time. And patients are evaluated both in the clinic to have an EDSS, but also using the digital tool on the smartphone, And also interestingly, in the study, we compare the data obtained by the digital tool in the clinic and after also at home, because it's relatively simple and a lot of patients appreciate to use it because it's maybe a little bit funny to use the smartphone to do this test. And we have a good level of retention, after we have presented some partial data, but we know also in different meetings that we have after 18 months, for most of the patients, we are globally 75 to 80% still in the study. Because previously we know that the use of digital tools is very complex for patients. And after a couple of months, there is many discontinuation, in fact. So with limitation of the interpretation of the data, of course. But with MSDetect, using MSCopilot from a small company at Sientam, a French company, maybe I think it's interesting for patients to use it. We will have the final results next year.